G'day, I'm Ash. G'day, I'm Ash. Welcome yourself to the channel. Welcome back to Tank Mechanic Simulator. The BT-7 is next up on the list. This is a command variant. It also has a radio in the back. It's also got that weird radio antenna. Now, this thing's been progressively turning pink and annoying my peripheral vision for the last couple of videos, so I thought today we'll actually give it a chance and actually give it a shot at being restored. Maximum speed of this thing is 86 kilometers an hour, between 72 and 86 that is, so about 45 to 53 mile an hour, and off-road is about 50 kilometers an hour comparatively to 31. Suspension is a Christie suspension, and the power to weight is 32.7 horsepower per ton, which is actually pretty good for a vehicle of its size. Mind you, the overall construction of the vehicle is very strange. It's not exactly a weird vehicle per se, but most of the suspension and basically the mechanics that make the springs work and the dampening for the road wheels is sandwiched between two pieces of metal. Anyhow, we're going to restore a couple of parts that we didn't forget to do, and now we're going to have a look at the actual vehicle. This thing was actually quite well armoured and quite well equipped for the time. 1940, this is probably Russia's most advanced vehicle outside of maybe the KV-1. They made 5,753 variants of these types of vehicles, from the BT-7A, the BT-7M, the BT-8, the BT-IS, the BT-7, and the BT-7M, and so on and so forth. Produced from 1935 to 1940, it's 14.9 tons. Or 15.3 short tons. It's interesting, is it's got a 15 to 10 millimeters turret. That's the armor thickness, which in and of itself provides enough protection to really stop rifle fire and maybe some sub-caliber machine guns. Got crew of 3, commander, loader, and a driver. Commander having to do radio as well, and the loader also having to operate the gun, and the driver obviously doing the driving. I've heard it's a particularly interesting vehicle to actually drive, like if you actually get your hands on either a BT or any of those Russian light tanks, they're quite hard and obnoxious to drive. I was watching a restoration series on, I can't remember what vehicle it was, it might have been a T-34, and they were talking about how most of the driving columns were quite similar, at least in vehicles of the compatible types. Now, for 1940, a 45mm anti-tank gun was actually quite impressive. This thing could actually hit Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs quite well. So for a light tank, it's actually pretty good for an ambush vehicle, which is what we see it being used in video games like War Thunder, for example. Now, I'm just installing some of the turret basics. I've got a couple of optics and things that I haven't got in yet. I think we're nearly done with the turret. But again, very simplistic. 2 radio antennas, which also connect to the outer steel turret, which also is the radio antenna. Put in the gun, which I believe was either a shoulder stabilized gun in early variants, and then just a spring-loaded basic sort of assembly here. Right, well I think after this the turret will be done. Done. Nice. Cool. Right, as you can see, the fuel tanks are inside the walls of, well, protection, I suppose. On the sides of the vehicles, the fuel tanks are sort of in these, like a cavern where the suspension system sits, as I mentioned earlier. It's quite an interesting design, so the whole entire hull is based around the suspension, which makes sense. Isn't an imported thing. But when I go to restore these vehicles in this game particularly, I like to go through, do the turret first because that's usually the easiest piece to restore, then go after the engine, and then I'll restore all the outside before going and doing all the inside. Now, in a normal restoration scenario, you would be doing everything as you could at that particular time. If you took apart the turret, then you'd isolate the turret as a separate project, same with the engine, and just utilize that whole entire thing. Or in this case, you would separate each componentry. Say you'd have a couple of people doing tracks, or you'd go and do the tracks at a later point, or you'd go and do the suspension, and you just work on each sector of the vehicle as close as you could possibly get to, at a specific set period of time. As you can see, double coil springs, some interesting engine hatches. I think we're almost done with this particular side, but unfortunately, there are more screws in place. Got the spring rod guides, the chain drive, which was actually quite an interesting thing. It's one of the last remaining tanks to actually just have a chain drive suspension, or at least a sliding gear, as I believe this is what this is called. So the final drive connects to that, which then connects to this sort of wheel thing here. And then here's the other panel that goes over the top with the bolts being absolutely everywhere. Any day now I'll finish this. Oh boy, so many screws. Actually, I should say rivets in a way. It's almost like riveted tank is how many screws there are. Alright, one more set. Down we go, back up we go. Easy peasy, and there we are. So, let's go put all the road wheels and things on the side. And we'll also go do the same on this. Okay. Got a bit of the side guard here with the mud guards. I wonder if there's any return rollers. No, because the tracks just go straight over the top of the road wheels, isn't it? There's no idlers on this one, aside from maybe the front. Interesting. Okay. There we go. Now that's side done. Alright. We're going to start work on the engine now. I don't know anything about the engine. Apparently it's a V12 gasoline with producing 450 horsepower at 1750 RPM. In itself is quite an interesting design because apparently it combines two engine components and is just a very, very basic industrial engine that was made for marine use. But actually, looking it up, it tells me that it was actually used for the TB3, the Polikarpov R5, one of the early biplanes the Soviets made, and the Beriev MBR-2. So, yeah. They built 27,000 of these engines, most of them mainly going to be, well, produced into BT-7s. But it's a liquid-cooled V12 engine, so, you know, it's quite interesting. On top of that, it also was used in the tank, the T-28, the infamous T-35, the land battleship that Russia developed, and the KV-1, at least a variant of such. So, quite a capable engine with an interesting history there. I'm not sure on any other specifics, like its bore or its stroke length or any of that hoo-ha. I'm just going to install the water pump here, and we can start looking to do all of the smaller components that you can't really get. Interestingly enough, on Soviet engines, they have the airlines in blue, and then they have the electrical in black. Something which is a standardization. Anyway, putting all the pistons and the piston headers on, and just everything. As you can see, this game tends to prioritize putting the white sort of parts over the top. If you don't go and put in one of those previous parts, sometimes it can get overshadowed by a new component that needs to be installed. So there is a great potential for you to actually miss components, which is a little bit of a pain. Unlike Plane Mechanics Simulator, which is developed by a similar crew, and was also published by the same publisher of Tank Mechanics Simulator, they can't really, you know, they don't really have a separation in the fact that, well, you can't go anywhere without actually installing that part. It just pushes the next part on top of the thing. So anyway, the game really just prioritized being a big-ass bitch, really. Having to put each cover on each cylinder and every valve is great and all, but with a silly engine mechanic like this, it really should be more in-depth sort of characteristic into how you actually install each considerable part. Anyhow, I'm not too mad. It just does get a little bit tiresome. I do like the new models that they've had for these new engines that they've published, at least for the first DLC that's come out for this game. But in itself, the way that the camera works and how sometimes you can get stuck in this camera mode via the point where you're trying to access certain parts and you basically get the overlay for the actual engine hoist itself rather than being able to actually articulate your camera properly and be able to use any of the components correctly is a little bit annoying. So between the camera work and the way that the model is just sitting there is awfully annoying as well. Anyway, we're installing the valve arms for the pistons and then basically going to put the valve covers over. Interestingly enough, this engine is very, very basic. And I guess that's just the way it works. Soviet engineering, comrade. I'm really looking forward to doing the IS-2 because it is a very, very different machine. Has a beefier engine as well as being absolutely humongous. Come on, there we go. Alright, next couple of things. And I think we should be almost finished. The engine now. Got a couple more components to do, I think. Almost done. Sweet. Actually, there it is. Engine condition, 96%. Okay, what are we missing? I have a feeling it's going to be something fuel-related. Camshaft housing. Wait, what? Oh, the ends of the camshafts. Okay, fair enough. And that's the good thing about the game too, is it has a little, I guess, finder where it will actually select the part and put it in for you. Right, put those in. And then we've got the other one on the other side. If the game would actually let me put the part in, please. Come on. Oh, alright, there we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws later, plus the housing itself. I think we're done. There it is, engine condition, 100%. Now, I'm just going to move and put the engine back in. And then we're going to move the turret back onto the tank. And we are virtually done here. Except, we haven't painted it all pink. So, let's just have a look. We're 100%, we're 100%. So let's fill up all the coolant, because we're actually going to do something different this time. We're actually going to have a bit of a test drive of this vehicle. Just to end off the video as a bit of a fun point. Now, I know you can do this in the game. Filling up all the coolant and all the fuel is fascinating. It doesn't really give you an idea of how things work, but at the same time, allowing us to really toggle all the fuel and put in the water and all of that kind of stuff is a good mechanic, I guess. Allows us to then start the engine and then go about our business of actually playing with the vehicle. So, I think we've got the coolant left to do. That just being a bit of water with some interesting stuff. Right, 100%. Fill up this one. And now, we should be good to start the vehicle. Yeah, we're done. Okay, fantastic. Right, everything's 100%. Everything is great. Now, I guess the time is for us to start the tank. Where's the button to start the tank? There it is, toggle engine. Bit of an audio cutout there on the engine start. Not too bad for a tank. Alright, let's go paint this bastard, shall we? This vehicle is possibly the most hideous vehicle I've ever seen. Oh, it's so bright. Look at that. The pink BT-7. Wow. Okay, let's go for a bit of a test drive in the vehicle, shall we? Don't normally take the vehicles into a test drive, but there you go. You can shoot the main gun, you can switch to high explosive, you can do a bunch of stuff, you can fire the machine guns as well. You can go through all of the interior positions, which is a nice thing. Also, this vehicle has the ability to take on and off its tracks and be used as a regular road vehicle. As you can see, I'm just sort of experimenting with that. the idle wheels actually turn into a steering wheel, and it uses it. Well, it almost be turned into an armoured car. So, you know, pretty cool. But at the same site, it's sort of just a bit interesting. So, there's that. Now, I want to see how fast this thing can go. So, let's stick it as fast as we can in a solid direction. Again, the test drive area is pretty pathetic. I don't like that this is a part of the game. We're going decently fast, however. Let's see if we can do a bit of a skid. As you can see there, take the road wheels off. The interior wheel is now a driving wheel. Look like a glove. Alright, put the tracks back on. It acts more like a regular vehicle. Still doing drifts with its suspension. Again, I need to recenter the turret. I can't be bothered. Alright, let's floor it. Come on. We've only got a limited space to run around in. This is really kind of the most pathetic sort of test drive arena, which is why I never feature this in my videos at all. The whole entire digging up mechanic and finding the tank and then washing it down and getting it carried out and all this other stuff. There's a precursor to have some basic fun, right? If they had a proper test drive and a proper shooting range, unlike this area, because the mouse doesn't fit in some of these areas here, then maybe it would be better, but this isn't the main part of the game. The main part of the game is restoring and playing with the tanks. Alright, well, hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. That is the pink BT-7. My name is Ash. Catch you in the next one. See you for a video on maybe the AVRE, or who the hell knows. Enjoy. Catch you later.